Hey, thank you for watching. Today I'd like to show you a beat I made today. First I'll show you how far I got on the whole thing, and then we'll go into a breakdown of how I made each part. Okay, here's the beat so far. First, I'd like to talk about the main chord progression that the synth is doing here. So I have two sections in this song. There's kind of like a verse or an intro that's the A section that has one set of chords. And then right over here we have kind of a B section or chorus. And I'll insert a picture of the chord progression that's going on. I started in G minor and kind of picked chords that I thought sounded really nice. I was going for very pretty sounding chords. Beach House was my inspiration with kind of how full and lush and kind of pretty the chords are. I imported these chords from an app on my phone where I made the progressions and the timing and arrangement of the song. I also chose the inversions of the chords. A lot of them are inverted because it chose a bass line and sort of a top line naturally in the chords that I liked, and that's kind of how I found them here. One interesting thing that's going on in the chord progression is a major chord that should be minor. So at the end of the chorus, you'll see that there is a G major 7 chord, even though this song is in G minor. So it gives it kind of an out of place sound. It almost sounds kind of like evil or different, but I think it's kind of a cool take on it. I don't know. I really enjoy picking out major chords in a minor song anyways. That's why I chose a lot of 6 and 7 chords, which are naturally major in a minor key. And I tried out using the 1 as major, like I was just saying, and it was cool, so I kept it in. It might be too weird, so maybe I'll fix it later, but I kind of like it. You'll see that it's the last kind of odd sounding chord of the chorus chord progression. So now I'll show you that A section I have of the chords and then talk a little bit about how I got the synth to sound like it does. So I got the sound in the synth by mixing together 3 different Ableton instruments. I'll show you them individually in a second, but I have 2 kind of more mid-range, and then this seashore one in the middle is a lot higher and kind of sparkly, but I mixed them together here in the faders and put them in this synth group to get that sound there. And then when the chorus comes in, I also have this very high string sound that's just kind of playing the same note right there. And I'll show you those real quick. And then to get that stutter sound where it's making that 16th note rhythm, I put this pan 16th stutter onto the audio effects area of the synth group. So it's actually affecting all 4 of those instruments right there. And I automated the amount knob, so it slowly adds more and more of that stutter where the noise actually stops as it goes through the bars. So I kind of did it in a special rhythm to fit the chord progression. So I'll show you that so you can kind of watch the automation that's going on as the chord progression goes. Okay, next let's talk about drums. So I started off with the Horizon kit in Ableton, and I actually did just go off of the pre-existing pattern that it comes with in Ableton, but I made an adjustment that I think is really cool. So I did some things during the arrangement to kind of switch it up. Like right at the beginning, it only has the kick and open hat, and then as it kind of nears the chorus, I bring in the fast hi-hat pattern in. But right here in the chorus, I think this is a really cool effect, but I basically have it go into, I don't know how to explain this, but for the first bar here, the pattern is half as slow between the kick and the snare, and then for the second bar, it is doubled. So if you kind of listen to it, it's very open for this first bar of the chorus where, you know, the chords are new. You don't have the snare going as quick as it was before. And then the next bar, it just jumps back into this slightly busier pattern. So I'll play it soloed so you can see. Just try and notice how that first bar is different and the beat kind of changes. I really like how that turned out. And I think the repeat that happens in the kick of this pattern is so cool. That's what really drew me to putting this in my project in the first place. Next, let's take a closer look at the bass. So in general, I started off with the lowest notes from the chord progression I picked before, you know, in the inversions that I had done. And that's my starting point. But I kind of changed it up to have some other, I forget what the word for it is, like leading tones, you know. And I had the rhythm change up quite a bit as the loop goes on. One thing that really changed the sound for me in this was leaving little spaces like this between the notes to get the right articulation I want. I noticed that if the end of the note went right up to the start of the next one, the next note didn't really have a punch. So even just leaving a little bit of space or a larger gap like that really adds to a more human articulation in this. Yeah, I like how it turned out. I wanted it to be really low, so I used both an 808 and a synth mixed together, and then I put a plugin on it that just kind of widened the bass even more. I wanted it to be really subby and full. So here's that. I don't know how much I like these, but I have 2 possible synth accent kind of melodies going on. One of them's just for, both of these are both just for this intro section. I kind of like the noises I picked, but I might change them to something more stronger melody-wise later on. Yeah, those sound so weird and scary by themselves, but they sound kind of cool and with the real mix. Here, I'll show you and you can listen out for those. And if you couldn't tell already, the vocal I put in here is from Bad Girls by MIA, and it's just a placeholder. I had it in my files from my DJ library, but I put it in here and it kind of helped add the context and like energy I needed as I was building this out. Yeah, it's kind of cool to have more of a rap or spoken thing going on here, since there's kind of a lot of other things for a melody to poke through. And finally, the last thing I experimented with today was adding guitar onto this. Since I said Beach House was one of my inspirations for this, that obviously makes so much sense. Yeah, I just kind of made a little line here to go on during the chorus. I wanted to make something that kind of contextualized that odd G major chord that happens at the end. I think having a line that uses it in a good way kind of smooths it over and makes it sound less weird. And then at the very end, I kind of experimented with an outro that's just chords and guitar, again on some sort of G major chord. So that's what's going on here. I don't know if it fits. I'm really lacking like a vision of if this should be more beach house leaning or more hip hop leaning. But right now we have this middle ground where there's kind of elements of both. So that's where the guitar came from. I'll show you that guitar line I made, and then it goes straight into that little outro section. There's not a good transition right now, but I like how they both sound individually. Yeah, super spacey and kind of free of the time or rhythm in that outro. If you're interested, all I was doing is triads in G major on the top two strings, just kind of going down, using all the G's I could for that G major chord. And that's the beat for today. Thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun making this, and it was cool to kind of experiment with those different influences, and I'm really happy with how the chords turned out for this one. So yeah, I hope you have a great day, and until next week, I try to release Thursdays at 3 Eastern time if you're interested in this type of content and want to follow along. Thank you so much.